A lot of poker players I speak with feel overwhelmed, like there's a million things they need to be working on and they're just struggling to keep on top of things. They feel like their strategy's not where they want it to be, their mindset's not optimized, their performance isn't at the level they want it to be, and there's just so many things that they want to be working on at the same time. And it always comes from a good place of wanting to improve, to get better. Very often it leads to this overwhelmed state where players aren't progressing and aren't moving forward. Alright, I've had dozens of conversations recently with players who are struggling to keep on top of the demands of being a professional poker player. Now from one side, these players often think that they need to do more, get more done, drive more, get more out of themselves. And they find themselves getting more and more stressed and more beat down, so to speak, from the demands of trying to keep on top of things. When in reality, it could be a lot simpler. And today, I'm going to talk about how we can make our poker careers and our progression a lot more simplified and also a lot more structured to get to the outcomes we want. Alright, so what happens if instead of trying to do a million things, we realize, wait a second, what are the actual skills I need to develop? How can I develop those skills consistently? And how can I do that for a prolonged period of time? Alright, so training skills consistently over time. That is all you really need to think about as a poker player. And when you've got that mindset, you then need to go, right, what skills are most important to work on right now? Which ones can wait till later? And which ones will I do in the future? All right, and I always bring it back to thinking like an athlete, because athletes are doing the same thing. All right, they're training skills so they can perform better on a game day or match day. And if you look at how they look at their kind of years, they're training different skills at different times. All right, generally in the off season, they're doing lots of endurance work and building their aerobic capacity. Then you get into the kind of towards the season, and they're doing more skills training that's specific to their sport. And then it comes to performing, and they're doing a lot more speed work, fine tuning, and peaking for that performance. All right, but it's all planned over time. Each skill is given the right amount of time and attention. All right, so as a poker player, it's important to know which skills you need to work on to get to the next level. All right, and having worked with hundreds of players over the past 5 years, I've identified 8 skills that you need to develop to a high level if you want to achieve your poker potential, whatever that means to you. So before you start training your skills, you need to identify which of the skills are most beneficial to you at this stage of your career and which ones you need to prioritize. All right, so I'm going to go through the 8 skills that I think all poker players need, and you can relate them to yourself and think which ones would be most beneficial for you to work on right now at this stage of your career. All right, so the first skill is self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is a very broad skill, but it, in all honesty, encompasses your identity, your belief systems, and your character traits. All right, so it's basically what you think about yourself, how you're showing up in your days, and what you think is possible for you going forward. Now, if you're somebody who wants to move up stakes, you want to achieve things in your life that you haven't so far, that could be win rates, poker success, could be anything outside of poker as well, you need to upgrade yourself, which generally means breaking past old beliefs that are keeping you trapped. Beliefs are generally a story narrative that we tell ourselves about ourselves, which keep us trapped very often, and then we need to upgrade those. All right, so for example, let's say you're wanting to play high stakes, but right now you're watching this and you're a low to mid stakes player. There's probably a belief system or a story you're telling yourself that makes it hard for you to get high stakes. Not skill, not your poker abilities, but a story you're telling yourself of why for you it's going to be difficult. I've never played high stakes. I've always been bad with money. Things have always been challenging for me. I've always found it difficult to play to the high games because the skill level's hard or the money involved is too big. All right, so we tell ourselves stories that prevent us from moving forward. All right, so the first skill, one of the most important skills, if you want to move forward and keep progressing to higher levels, you've got to do some work on self-awareness, breaking past those old beliefs, creating new ones, upgrading your character traits, which is how you show up every day, and then your overall identity. Your identity is who you think you are and how you act from that lens. All right, so that's the first one. And I'm sure a lot of you guys who haven't done work in this area, this will be the most important one. All right, I've just done my Poker Athlete program, just finished it last week, and I always ask them what is the most important skill that you guys learned. In every single program I run, there's always a 20 to 30% of the group who say self-awareness is number one. It's the most important skill because it's almost like the foundation for everything else. If you don't work on this, you get trapped very quickly. All right. So if you want to move up 6, you want to actually get to the next level, maybe self-awareness is the skill you need to focus on. All right. Next skill is emotional regulation. All right. And this is all about understanding that when you play poker, emotions come up. And not only that, these emotions impact our ability to make decisions. Now, before you get into poker, I'm sure you've had emotions throughout your life, but they seem to get really magnified when you start trying to play poker, especially professionally. And the reason is because a lot of things trigger us. We think things are unfair. We want to win, but we can't force ourselves to beat our competition. And lots of things happen which create emotional responses. All right, so as a poker player, you need to first of all understand that things in your environment are triggering you. That means they're causing an emotional response, and they then leading you to make often deviations in your strategy when you're in this emotional state. Although we think we're very logical, very often we make decisions based on emotion, and then we use logic to kind of convince ourselves or to make it feel like we're making a logical decision. All right, so for example, if I'm tilted or angry, I'm going to make decisions based on that emotion, but my mind will rationalize it in the moment. Like say I'm going to make an aggressive river bluff on an opponent, but I'm feeling angry. When I'm feeling angry, the reason I'm making the play is because the anger is wanting me to be aggressive, but my mind will go, this is a good spot, he's going to be falling too much here, this is a great exploitation strategy, and I will convince myself in the moment that it's the right play. But as soon as the emotion subsides, all of a sudden you're like, oh, actually that was a bad play. Of course I shouldn't have bluffed there, or whatever the scenario is. All right, but emotional regulation is, can you calibrate your emotional responses to your environment? In all honesty, almost every poker player I've worked with has a lot of improvements to do here. All right, but this is understanding things trigger me. How can I understand the meaning I'm giving that trigger? And how can I reframe it so that in future I can handle more and more things not go my way without emotional responses coming up? Also, can you get comfortable experiencing emotions but staying in control? All right, this is like in a high level skill towards emotional regulation. Can you experience emotions but keep the mind sharp? All right, this is a whole skill of regulating or calibrating your emotional responses to the poker environment. All right, this skill is going to be worked very specifically to poker. All right, it doesn't matter how good you are in your relationships, how good you are at dealing with adversity outside of poker. Poker is a unique battleground, and you need to calibrate your emotional responses uniquely to poker. All right, this is where emotional regulation is a powerful skill in that respect. All right, next skill I want to talk about is focus. Pretty obvious skill that is valuable for poker, your ability to hold your attention where you want it to for sustained periods of time. Now, as time is going on and the world's getting more digital, we're getting more and more distracted. More notifications, more inputs, more stimulus that's taking us away from what we want to focus on. So now, and it's not going to change anytime soon, the ability to put your attention where you want it to and keep it there is going to be a superpower. All right, so think about it. When you're playing poker, you want your attention exactly on the hands you're playing. Whether you're playing online, you're playing 4 to 6 tables, whether you're playing live in a casino, it's 1 table. It doesn't matter what the environment is. You want your focus and your attention to be directed where you want it to be, and you want it to sustain that for a long period of time. Now, what players are finding challenging, players will come to me very often and go, I don't know, I sit down to play poker and my mind's just distracted. I'm trying to focus, but I can't. What should I do? All right, so they're realizing the kind of muscle, as I call it, the focus muscle, when they want to use it at the poker tables, they can't. Or they're struggling because they haven't trained it. All right, so focus is a skill. It's a muscle you can train. You've got to train yourself to put your attention where you want it to and to hold it for long periods of time. You've got to realize thoughts come up, distractions come up, notifications pop up, phone goes off. Things happen around you which can distract our attention, which can take up our awareness. And the goal is to spot those things, to let those things appear, but always to be able to bring back your focus to where you want it to. All right, so if you can't hold your attention on just playing poker with no distractions, no phone, no anything else for 90 minutes and do that multiple times in a day, you've got work to do. All right, you should be able to have 8 to 9 out of 10 focus, multiple hours of your day when you want it to. All right, obviously focus requires intention. You don't just focus naturally, like just randomly. You got to put your intention on something. When you do that, are you able to focus? And if not, It's a skill you need to train. All right, the next one is resilience. All right, and this is a skill which means you're able to deal with adversity and return to your kind of emotional and kind of physical baseline quickly. All right, let's say you're on a downswing and you've just had a bad session. It's your 5th bad session in a row. A resilient person can deal with that adversity. They can come back the next day and be like, right, I'm ready to go. All right, so you deal with setbacks, you deal with adversity, and you bounce back. All right, so if you lack resilience, very often you get thrown off a lot. All right, bad sessions, bad results, bad situations knock you down and you stay down. You go to bed and you're ruminating about the hands you played. You wake up in the morning, you're still a bit annoyed because things didn't go your way. That's a sign you haven't developed resilience. All right, so resilience is a skill where we need to train it. And also, we can think of resilience almost similar to mental toughness. I've done some videos on this on my channel if you guys want to dig into those deeply. But basically, we need to toughen up because we generally end up in our comfort zones and we do things that are easy. We live very modern lives where we can just beat our computers, be on our devices, and we forget or we don't take on challenges that stretch us. So resilience is taking on adversity consciously and being able to handle challenges going forward because we're trained. We're putting in the work to harden ourselves and toughen ourselves to deal with challenges. All right, this is huge for poker if you want to be able to deal with any sort of bad variance, bad results, self-doubt that comes with shooting higher stakes. You've really got to learn to be resilient to go through that. All right, next skill is perspective. And this is the ability to zoom out, to see things as they are. All right, and this is actually one of the most powerful skills in terms of reframing any situation. All right, we think things are good or bad. All right, so let's say I make a mistake at the poker tables. From one element, I could go bad. Adam, idiot, you made a mistake. On the other side, I could just go, I made a mistake. It's neutral. All right, not good or bad. On the other side, I could go, oh, good, I made a mistake. Awesome. I can study that spot now. That's giving me a nice place to learn. So I'll know that hand, make sure I study that. So next time I play, I can learn from that mistake. So now the mistakes become a good thing because it's an opportunity to learn. So which one of those is correct? None, right? None of them are really correct. But which one is most powerful? Definitely not the thing about it as a negative. Neutral is pretty solid, and good is amazing because we can learn to learn from that mistake. All right, so we've got to learn to see perspectives, wider perspectives, generally zooming out, but also putting things in a context. All right, so often poker players zoom in a lot. They see things very much in the moment. If you're having a bad session, all of a sudden it feels like life is bad, poker's bad. When's it going to end? All right, when it really zoomed in to the moment by moment changes and what's happening. When in reality, you may be having a good week or a good month or a good year, and we fail to see that perspective. All right, so the skill of this is to, as your default, how do you learn to see situations as neutral or in your benefit? All right, this is huge for dealing with adversity at the poker tables. All right, next one is presence. And this is the ability to be in the moment of doing what you're doing. All right, and the way I describe this skill is we have two different mindsets. We have a training mindset, which is very analytical, scientific. It's always calculating, very effortful, and putting energy into stuff. This is amazing for studying, amazing for learning, amazing for getting ideas and concepts and analyzing stuff. However, that is not the mindset you want to be in when you're playing poker. When you're playing poker, the work's been done, the studying's been done, the analyzing's been done. Now you're in game, you want to actualize that performance, which means play the best poker you can, given your skill levels coming into that game, which means completely different mindset. Your mind should be quite empty. You should be quite creative. You should be intuitive. You should allow yourself to make plays and reads and exploits based on what is happening in the moment. You should be present. Now, most players struggle because they spend so much time in this very effortful trainer mindset that they can't switch it off. And then when it comes to playing poker, which is the performance mindset, they're like, whoa, well, they end up trying really, really hard, straight back to the trainer mindset. All right, this is a real high level one that when you understand it and you start to apply it and you train yourself to go into the performance mindset, you realize, wow, my game's a lot better. Life's a lot easier. Poker's an easier game, and I can actually trust myself to make the correct plays in game. All right, so presence and being in the moment and being in the performance mindset is key. And the next two skills to work on are of your body and your physiology. All right, so you've got to understand when you're trying to perform at anything that the body and the mind have this bilateral relationship. They're constantly in communication. So if your physiology is not optimized, the mind very quickly is going to be suboptimal when it's coming to decision making. All right. So when it comes to being a poker player, 2 key skills are needed here. The first one is stress mastery. And this is understanding that being a poker player, competing in poker, which is what I would call it, is stressful. Stressful means it causes a physiological response in our body that makes us react to challenges and to threats. All right. So knowing this, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Playing poker, it's not just a problem-solving game. Your body's responding. Your physiology's responding. Sometimes you feel anxious. Sometimes you feel tension. Sometimes you feel high heart rate. All these things are happening because as we're interacting with our environment, things are getting labeled as threat, challenge, opportunity. So all these things are going on, which means our physiology changes. So stress mastery is about mastering the ability to stay in control of your mind and body during highly stressed events. All right. So for example, let's say you're playing an aggressive opponent and he's bluffing you. All right. And he's putting you in a tough spot. That is very similar from a physiological perspective to you being in a bar and someone coming up to you and threatening you. All right. Talking to you and saying he wants to fight you, or he's being aggressive with you. All right. One's a poker hand, one's in a bar, but from our physiological perspective, threat detected. All right. So cortisol pumped through the body, adrenaline pumped through the body to allow us to respond better to the threat that's in front of us or the challenge. All right. Now this happens, and most people don't know how to deal with it. Most people are very, very bad when the stress response gets triggered at staying in control of how they think and feel. All right, they act emotionally, they act impulsively, they get dragged around. All right, because they're not in control of the physiology. So stress mastery is the ability to stay in control no matter what happens in your physiology. All right, and the way I describe it, there's 5 zones we can be in, from highly activated to really lowly activated, and everything in between. The optimal performance state is often this kind of mid zone when we're activated but not too activated. All right, it's understand how your physiology responds to your environment, and the goal is to widen and widen and widen the amount of situations you can play good in, that you can feel in control even when things are not going your way. Now the mistake a lot of players make here is they think that stress needs to be lowered. They think they need to get more calm, to meditate more, to bring down the stress response. And this is good in certain contexts, but when it comes to performance at the poker tables, that's not what you need to do. You need to learn to ride the emotional responses and the physical changes and actually direct them into your performance. And what you soon realize when you start doing this is that the stress response actually gives you a lot of energy, a lot of activation, which you can direct into playing your best poker. All right, so that's the 7-1, mastering this kind of stress response, and it's ongoing. Every time you play, there's some sort of stress response getting triggered. And the final skill is energy optimization. And this is realizing that energy is the currency for life, and that anything you want to perform at requires energy output. And you can probably think back to some of your best days, your most productive days, and you had high energy. Your energy was feeling good. Now for most people and most poker players, this feeling's quite fleeting and it happens almost by chance. Some days you feel amazing, other days you feel groggy, and they kind of get dragged all over the place. Now, when you start to really figure it out, you realize that your energy can be systemized. And there's a way to produce energy, to create energy, and to feel energized on a regular basis. All right, it comes down to fueling your body, everything you put into it. It comes down to moving your body, all the kind of way you train your energy systems, and then also comes to how you recover, and how you restore and regenerate after stressful bouts. All right, so once we actually look at it, we can look at your lifestyle, your habits, everything around your performance. We can actually create a system that allows you to feel high energy consistently. All right, this requires making small changes, but quite a few small changes. And once you understand how it works, all of a sudden, you can be back in control. You can have almost as much energy as you want, or as much as you're more committed to having, based on understanding how to feel your body, move your body, and recover in the right way. All right, so hopefully this gives you a good overview of some of the skills you can be working on as a poker player. And for yourself, think about which of them are most important to you. You'll have some of these skills I mentioned, which you're doing great at. They're your strengths. You have other ones that you're struggling, and they're your weaknesses, and probably the areas you need to work on the most. Now you know the skills. The next thing you need to do is you need to train them in a systemized way, consistently, for a prolonged period of time. All right, in the next video I show for you guys, I'm going to share with you exactly what that system would look like, how you can train these skills and level them up in an environment that actually allows you to work on them for a long period of time. All right, so you've got to train skills consistently for a prolonged period of time. That was what I started this video with. And once you understand how to do that, you've got a community of people who are doing it, you've got some accountability in there, but you've also got a progressive model and a system to follow, so you know currently where you're at, you know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. You can make amazing progress. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple. When I work on these skills with my poker athletes, we have one skill that we're working on at a time. So there's no overcomplicated. I know I've talked about a lot of concepts here, but in all honesty, we don't need to work on a million things at once. We work on one thing, we train it in a systemized way to get to that next level, and then we work on the next one, and we just keep going that way through a systemized way. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next video I've got coming very soon, which will teach you the system you need to use to implement everything that I've talked about today.